Hey guys, let's get more news about Steelers, but first, don't forget to subscribe and leave your like. First call, hope for Cole Holcomb at training camp, predictions on Cam Sutton's suspension, more slot for George Pickens? Thursday's first call has tons of minicamp news from Steelers headquarters. Cole Holcomb, Cam Sutton and George Pickens are all focal points of conversation. Plus, we examine Mitch Keller's recent success for the Pirates. For the first time in a while, it sounds like there is some optimism for Cole Holcomb. The Steelers' inside linebacker suffered a significant knee injury last year in Game 8 of the regular season against Tennessee. The injury was so bad Steelers coaches and front office executives have refused to put a timetable for any sort of return date. But on Wednesday, at minicamp, Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin finally offered a bit of a forecast. Tomlin was asked, "Is Cole Holcomb on track to do some work at training camp?" "Oh, I'm sure he is. I don't have a lot of details about the specifics of it. But at every checkpoint, I think the experts are comfortable with his progress. And I know he's working extremely hard," Tomlin replied. Obviously, there is a huge leap between some work and being on the field in a game. But the acquisition of Patrick Queen and the drafting of Peyton Wilson should be enough to offset the departure of Quan Alexander as well as Holcomb's absence at inside linebacker. "He can really run," defensive coordinator Terrell Austin said of Wilson Wednesday. "That guy can move. I think he's really sharp. He's into football. He has great football questions. So, I think that he's going to have a legitimate shot to be a dime linebacker right off the bat because that is one area that he can do." Holcomb was part of a three-man rotation with Alexander and Elandon Roberts last year that started to pop before Holcomb and Alexander were lost for the year in back-to-back weeks. Along with Queen and Wilson, the Steelers can still lean on Roberts for a lot of snaps and turn to third-year pro Mark Robinson, who has had some flashes at ILB his first 2 years. Given the Steelers' lack of options at wide receiver this year, it sure would be nice to have more than one George Pickens. Failing the ability to clone him between now and September, though, having one George Pickens line up in multiple spots to keep defenses guessing may be the next best option. And Pickens seems to be on board with the idea. Speaking with me and a batch of other reporters Wednesday, the Steelers' third-year pass catcher is claiming that he is getting a lot of work out of the slot in minicamp under new offensive coordinator Arthur Smith. In fact, he went so far as to say he has worked more out of the slot in minicamp so far than he did in first 2 years in the league. "It's great. I'm a total receiver. So I like working in the slot just as much as I like working on outside receiver," Pickens said. "It puts me on linebackers. It puts me on safeties. Not just putting me on one side of the field and letting a guy come over and help the opposing cornerback. It puts me in the mix." Getting some slot reps could help Pickens' yards after catch numbers if he is able to grab the ball in stride over the middle of the field. According to Pro Football Reference, Pickens jumped from 104 yards after catch in his rookie year to 398 last season. Savage with his route running, Justin Fields praises Calvin Austin. "Logically, it should be pretty tough to get excited about a fourth-round wide receiver who missed all of their rookie year due to an injury and only tallied 180 yards last season. But Calvin Austin 3 is different. Look at the Steelers' receivers behind George Pickens. Quez Watkins, Van Jefferson, Roman Wilson, Scotty Miller. If you were Calvin Austin, would any of those names instill particular fear in you? Sure, they are solid depth pieces, but it's about as wide open of a WR2 battle as there is in the league. And of those guys, Austin's speed is probably the biggest single skill possessed by any of them. He's always been an absolute burner and can help, in that sense, take some heat off of George Pickens, who likely is due for a ton of defensive attention this season. Could incentives be the key to Cam Hayward's extension? But Austin isn't just a speed guy anymore. As Justin Fields shared on day 2 of mandatory minicamp, in video provided by the team, he's been working on other aspects of his game as well. He can create a lot of space in small spaces. Fields said. He's quick, savage with his route running, and he's just a hard worker. There are some plays where he knows he's not getting the ball, and he's still winning the route. To have a player like that give that much effort on the field every play is really good to see. I think it's gonna rub off on the other guys too. This is as close to a make-or-break year as I think it can get for Calvin Austin in the NFL. Realistically, this is the most wide-open shot he will have at touches, at least until he establishes himself. The rapport he is building with Fields, and hopefully Wilson as well, could be huge for him. The key for Austin, in my opinion, is to become more than just a burner. He's not big enough to be a huge factor in the blocking game, though he does show good effort there. The route running piece, which Fields praised him on, will be key for him this season to see the field. Outside of Roman Wilson, the other names in the wide receiver room are pretty known veteran commodities. There isn't a ton of untapped potential in Jefferson, Watkins, or Miller. All that means for Calvin Austin, then, is that he knows where the bar to entry is, or at least where it should be. I think his range of outcomes is wider than most people think. It doesn't feel crazy for him to be second on the team in receiving yards, and it doesn't feel crazy for him to be worse than he was last year. But he has to know this is his golden moment. Is Bengals WR Higgins the guy the Steelers should target in a trade? All the talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers trading for a wide receiver has centered on guys like Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, D.K. Metcalf, and Courtland Sutton. But maybe none of those guys are the ones the Steelers should be focusing on. The Cincinnati Bengals kicked off mandatory OTAs this week, and one player absent is wide receiver Higgins. Higgins has yet to sign his franchise tag while he holds out for a massive new contract, and it seems unlikely the Bengals will give it to him after picking up the 5th-year option on Ja'Marr Chase, knowing he's going to command a Justin Jefferson-type contract soon. Higgins had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons before a hamstring injury cost him all or part of 5 games in 2023. The Bengals were still willing to give him his 5th-year option, but it's clear he wants to play somewhere else. The Steelers desperately need a number 2 or even co-number 1 receiver to pair up with George Pickens, and Higgins would be a great fit. And you fan? What do you think of the situation of Higgins? Leave your opinion in the comments.